Hi there. Thank you so much for stopping in. I am about to go through the education guide given to us by the Yellowhead Institute. It's the Treaty Map Education Guide. It says 9 activities designed to center Indigenous perspectives on treaties and on the broader historical and contemporary context of the Indigenous state relationship. And I just heard about it on Facebook. So I wanted to share going through it and hope to encourage other people to go through it. So if you're new here, so sorry. My name is Ashley. I was a teacher and education leader abroad for 10 years. And now I've come back to Canada and I'm kind of just processing my culture shock. And so I'm sharing and educating and just giving everything that I can to basically build Canada up to what I thought was happening over here while I was gone. So hopefully you'll want to join me on my journey. So let me just share my screen. I've already got it set up here, the education guide. And you can see I've been catching up on my reading as my MLA separatist. AlbertaWatch.ca. Very important to know, are our politicians doing what we want them to be doing? We're in Canada, right? So not to be confused with the USA. We have different laws, different way of running, and we're supposed to be working on truth and reconciliation. So that's me over here working on truth and reconciliation. I'm reading the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls in Two Spirits report. I'm a little bit of the way through and I'm still going. And then I just found this on Facebook today, so I wanted to take a peek through and bring you along with me. So, yellowinstitute.org, it's literally on the home page, so I think it's really new. I'm not exactly sure, but let's see. So, special feature. Treaty making is older than Canada. Given the boundless scale, scope, and interdimensionality of Indigenous-led treaties, how can they be represented on a map? Explore version 2.0 of the treaty map and download the accompanying education guide. So I'm just going to open link in new tab so that I can go and see what that is. And then I'll keep scrolling down the page before I move forward. So this will also be a little bit of digital literacy. I mean, it's basically what I would do in my classrooms, to be honest, just with whatever content. So of course we want to check the source, yellowinstitute.org, very well known, academic. I'm not really worried that they're trying to manipulate me. I believe that they're trying to educate me. So we can see they have all sorts of different information. We can go and look that up at any time we want. Reflections on rupture, Mark Carney's New World Order, and an Indigenous response, right? The other side of the story. I mean, I've heard conservatives and liberals, and unless you go dig for the Indigenous, it's kind of hard to see, right? So that's our job. That's our job as Canadians, is to go and dig and make sure we are hearing the Indigenous perspective because sometimes they're not getting the fair voice amplification that they should, right? So let's just take a look here. Yellowhead North aims to amplify the writers, activists, researchers, and artists who advocate for the reclamation of Indigenous land and life and the unique dimensions of that campaign. Now, I'll tell you that me personally, I relate to the Indigenous ways of thinking and being and whatnot, and what I do know, because of the way that they interact with nature and the way that they want to take care of the planet and each other. And it's just, it seems like really common sense in a way when I really break through all the noise that I hear in politics and stuff, you know what I mean? So, anyways, okay, so they have lots of good information. I might have to just star this and come back to it because, yeah, obviously there's a lot of good information here that would help me with my own truth and reconciliation. Okay, so let's go see what we found and dig a little. Treaty making is older than Canada. Yeah, so remember, Canada was made in, and then I would get my kids, especially if they have phones and whatnot, or their tablets, right? What time did we, or what year did we discover Canada? What's the story of the white person perspective? What's somebody else's story? Because we have multicultural classrooms. What did you learn at your school? What did you learn in your parents' discussions. Where did you, right? Get the kids discussing, get them comfortable with the differences about what we heard and what could be true and what could not be true, right? Like it's funny because my girlfriend is 10 years older than me and she always says we don't talk politics, we don't talk money, we don't talk this, we don't talk that. And I said, why? She says, well, people argue. I said, but why? She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be arguments. It could just be sharing information so that we could all make better decisions, live better, like guide each other. Like, anyways, more, I know, community driven, right? It's crazy. But, anyways, let's keep going. Sorry, I always go on tangents. So long before European contact, indigenous nations engaged in diplomacy with one another and with the land. Ooh, so not just with one another, right? With the land. Imagine, right? They didn't just go dig up oil like fucking wackos and pump it out 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 so that everybody could be rich and then we could have none left. Anyways, okay. This canon of diplomacy stretches back thousands of years and has been a universal phenomenon among Indigenous peoples. Given the scale and scope of Indigenous-led treaty making, it cannot be captured fully in the treaty map or any map. It is important to contextualize Indigenous perspectives on the eras of treaty making in the treaty map. This contextualization requires an understanding of Indigenous values, approaches, and expectations flowing from treaties made with the land, each other, and early settlers. A period of diplomacy with enduring influence, even through waves of colonization. Now, you know what just clicked in my head, the connection that I just made was to the separatists, right? Because they too feel like they're not being heard. But imagine you're not the first voices of this land, so you're not the one that needs to be heard, technically. Like your voice comes like second or third, right? Because the indigenous people are here first and the land is here first. So it's just a different way of thinking, right? Some of us want to have a sustainable way of life, and some of us want to just get our pockets as deep as possible. And now all of these veils and these cages and these systems have come through because we're all educated in different ways across the planet, and now we're all connected thanks to the internet, right? So yeah, the need for all perspectives and multiple sides of the story is so important so that we can see where they're coming from, right? We can't go from the just one perspective, our own white person perspective or our own indigenous perspective or our own whatever perspective, right? There has to be a blending. We share this area, we share the land, we share the planet, we share knowledge, information. Like, why? Why are we such gatekeepers? Why are we such dog eat dog? Like, why do we make life so difficult, right? Anyways, let's keep going. Sorry, you know me and my tangents. Okay, the first treaties were with the land. Oh, our oldest stories are about relationships with the deer, the moose, and the beaver, among others. The treaty between the, now pardon my butchering of this, I'm still learning, Anishinaabe and the deer and the moose sought to repair the harm from overhunting. The treaty with the beaver was about knowledge exchange around childcare. Each ascribed agency and self-determination to these animals as treaties between equals designed to promote sharing, respect, and mutual autonomy. I mean, to me, it's so kindergarten basic, right? So it's like, of course we would apply this. Like, we, this is how we teach children to behave. So why is it that we have suddenly stopped doing that? Why is it that suddenly you become an adult and you forget all of this, right? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, right? Maybe it's just me. And so that again is where the discussion comes in. What do you think? What are your stories? What is your fairy tales or how you learn about being a good person? And when do we stop being that good person? Where does the line get drawn, right? When do politics get involved? When do social customs get involved? When do family customs get involved? Like, lots of stuff to talk about, especially in multicultural classrooms, right? Okay. This type of treaty informed indigenous political, sorry, this type of treaty informed indigenous political, social, and economic organization more generally, and would inform the treaties indigenous people made among themselves. So just a different framework that we are acknowledging as Canadians, right? As settlers, even though it's like it's funny because as being a person who went to China for 10 years, I can't imagine going there and being like, hey, live like this. Like that's enough, right? I went over there and was like, tell me how you guys live so I can adapt my teaching to be relevant to you. Because I had to teach them BC curriculum and like this truth and reconciliation stuff. So how could I make it relevant to them? They're not colonizers and settlers. They are the indigenous people of their land. So it was really interesting to see their point of view and what they thought, and almost in a way like how they've been brainwashed by their country and their people, right? Like it's every country has their own systems and brainwashing and this, that, and the other, right? We just all need to acknowledge it and then, I don't know, take the best of the best and do what's best for the planet and for everybody, right? Why does life have to be hard for anybody? Like, let's be real. Okay, let's keep going. As long as the grass grows, as long as the world stands. With conflict on national scales occasionally emerging, the primary tool to address that conflict was the treaty. Hmm. In the Great Lakes region of the, again, pardon my butchering, Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee managed waves of friction with well-worn diplomatic concepts such as the mat or the bowl, which made their way into treaties such as the dish with one spoon, covering what's now Southern Ontario. So all of these words are new to me, to be honest. So if I was in my classroom right now, I would have a scribe, right? Somebody, well, one, we'd all be taking our own notes and doing annotations because annotations are key to interacting with any piece of media or reading. And then I would have a scribe and I say, hey, we're going to look this up later. So what is this? First of all, how do we pronounce Anishinaabe and how does Haudenosaunee? The best pronouncers are going to help us learn to best pronounce it. And then we're going to look into the mat and the bowl, right? We're going to take a little tangent, the dish with one spoon, and how that's now Southern Ontario. That's all stuff we want to go and dig and figure out. Treaties reflected a world where diverse communities would share a geography if they collectively worked towards co-managing the contents of the bowl or dish, as long as the grass grows or the world stands. Oh, it's almost poetic, no? Like, come on. I don't know, maybe this is why I relate so much. It's the English teacher in me that just loves what we see as metaphors, but maybe like should be taken a little bit more seriously, right? Hmm. It's funny because I took a lot of like Emerson and like back to nature transcendental literature and stuff, and it just really relates to that. Like it's really interesting. Okay, so let's see. These types of treaties were graphically represented on wampum belts, beadwork, as well as birch bark scrolls, pictographs, and petroglyphs, masks, totem poles, winter counts, and so on, right? Indigenous people, their own calendars, their own social systems, their own writing and reading and education systems, right? They have their own way of learning, their own academic way, right? Which is with the land. They learn and live and thrive with the land. That's their education. It's different. Treaties affirmed self-determination and mutual support. Oh, and also keep in mind, this is just what I learned, right? You should go talk to First Nation people. You should go learn their stories and their histories. I'm just spitballing and making people think and trying to blend all of our stuff together, okay? So sorry, treaties affirmed self-determination and mutual support. Okay, nice. As settlers arrived in the Maritimes and Great Lakes, Indigenous treaty making was extended in the form of ceremony, gift giving, and adoption. The Micmac and the Haudenosaunee each recorded dozens of agreements in the late 1500s and early 1600s, perhaps the most well-known of which was the two-row wampum between the Mohawk and the Dutch, and the covenant chain between the broader Haudenosaunee and the English. Okay, that's another one. Write that down. We're gonna have to dig through that and find that and dig more information. Like the earlier examples of Indigenous international treaties, these agreements affirm self-determination, mutual support, and sometimes economic and military alliances because of Trumperoonies of the world, right? The cycle of this idea that we should be conquering and taking resources and conquering and taking resources. I mean, we all know better now, right? Like, look, am I actually wearing a bullying t-shirt? I'm actually wearing a bullying t-shirt. So, like, at what point do we stop electing leaders who want to be bullies on this planet, you know? Anyways, let's keep going. Indigenous treaty alliances, the Iron Confederacy, also known as the, again, I'm so sorry for butchering these words if I'm butchering them, as the Neha Nehiyapot Nehiya Nehiyapot Nehiyapot. Sorry, I haven't heard this one yet. The other ones I've heard off the top of my head at like ATA assemblies and whatnot. But Nehiyapot emerged in the late 1800s to unite the distinct Plains nation, Cree, Saulteaux, Assiniboine, and eventually Stoney, Nakota, and Métis to defend their shared and exclusive land and resources. I just want to say it's okay to mispronounce things, right? We will learn as we get better. What matters is that we're trying and we're learning, and you just kind of get a little comfortable with the discomfort of not being perfect, and maybe somebody might laugh at you for mispronouncing. But if somebody laughs at you for mispronouncing, like they're the person who's mean, right? They're the person who's not very nice because if anything, they should just ask you to clarify. They should just ask you to say it again. They should just, right? There's no need to be a jerk to people and make them feel bad. That's bullying. That's just making themselves feel better, right? And then you also have to understand that some people are angry and maybe they will be insulted that you don't know it. But again, that's okay. They're allowed to be angry. You didn't purposely make them angry. They're just reacting. If your intentions are good, then that's what matters, right? And right now, my intentions are good. So again, I apologize for the butchering, but I will learn it. I will get better, and I welcome the help, right, for pronunciation. And if I was in a classroom, I would ask the students because they probably know better, right? They probably have heard it enough times that they pronounce it well. And me being new to the country, kind of in my own weird way, right? I would rely on them. And that's how you engage the students to give back. Because if you're learning together, I don't know. It's just so different. It's just so different than just being like, blah, 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 learn this, teach this, blah, 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 right? It's like a giving back and forth. And then again, kids are just more engaged, right? Because otherwise they want to be on this thing and like this thing will always win. Let's be real. Okay, so let's go back. Lasting nearly 100 years, the Confederacy governed via an intertribal council and upheld a balance of mutual autonomy and shared responsibility for land management. Now, land management would be a difficult conversation, I think, between First Nations and some white people or some whoever people. Doesn't even really matter. The fact is that you're either looking out for the land or you're not, right? Some people want to dig the land for resources and money and minerals and, more and more and more and more and more until there's nothing left. And then some people want to take just enough of what we need to live comfortably and well and sustainably, right? Without indulging in greed, without indulging in all the negative stuff that just doesn't support everybody long term, right? And definitely doesn't like support the nervous system by any means, right? Like there's so much education out there now that can all be tied together as to why we should have better responsibilities to the land, better accountability to the land, better accountability to each other, better responsibility for each other, like more education, better education, right? So anyways, let's keep going. In 1850, the Heiltsuk and Haida nations worked to resolve conflict among themselves, exasperated by colonial encroachment, right? Meaning, like, they didn't have those problems until other people came around and stuck their nose where it didn't belong, and turned their attention to defending and sharing the management of their collective lands and waters. Okay. Interesting how some people can come together, right? And how some cannot. Resisting colonial interpretations. These latter examples unfolded simultaneously with the pre-Confederation and Confederation treaty eras, but stood in opposition to them. They reaffirmed Indigenous expectations of treaties, expectations that were excused, rejected, or intentionally misrepresented to push a vision of Canada based on exclusive sovereignty, dispossession of Indigenous peoples' lands and resources, and an ignorance of the land's agency. Now, in my head, I think about, all the clear cutting of the trees, all the digging of the mines, all the overuse, right? How much we waste, how much we overconsume, right? I think that's what I think we're talking about. And maybe there's more to this, obviously, because again, history, social studies, lots of cross-curricular here, but we know politics did not always come in good faith. We know leaders didn't always come in good faith. We know that these people did not always speak truthfully, and manipulation began, and manipulating and dog eat dog became a way of life. And I don't know. Anyways, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hatred, there's a lot of darkness in our history, right? And there continues to be, which is again why truth and reconciliation and transparency is so important. And that's why, again, I am doing my truth and reconciliation work because I think it is important to look at all sides of the story, and we don't get enough of the other side of the story in Canada. I mean, I think it's coming through education now. But again, we need more, right? We need more on the internet. We need less hate on the internet, more critical thinking. Like we can change the culture. We just have to do it, right? We just have to do it. Okay, Indigenous treaty making endures, right? You can't just erase that. It doesn't go away. As the treaty map demonstrates, Indigenous people have continued to challenge narrow colonial interpretations in each of the treaty eras and push for alternatives. They also continue to make treaties among themselves and the land in contemporary Canada and beyond. Like, there's just so many levels coexisting, right? Like, this little clockworks of these wheels all intertwining together because we're all kind of surviving just to make the clock turn. Like it's just mind-blowing sometimes, right? And that's why, again, we need all the perspectives. We need to blend more. There needs to be less this against each other, right? I'm so sick of hearing libs, cons, this, that. Like, no. It's not the political party that's the problem. It's not a blanket statement generalization that's the problem. It's you're either for humanity or you're for resources, like in your own pocket. Like you either want more than you need and you just want to keep accumulating, or you just want to like do well by the planet, be sustainable, do well by others. Like there's two different, it's the right and the left, as in like devil and angel. That's it. There's no anything else. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. It doesn't matter where you put like, you either value money or you value people and the land. That's how I see it. I would love to hear your comments and what you think and like agree, disagree. Like I love an open discussion. I know this isn't the best forum for that, but if you're coming in good faith, then let's share. Okay, in 2014, 13 nations across the USA and Canada negotiated the Buffalo Treaty. So I was already in China by then, so I missed that. So we would look that up, put that on the radar. This one's got to learn, I got to learn, we got to learn. With the shared goal of restoring buffalo habitat on over 6 million acres of land, and through a governance framework that privileged a reciprocal and spiritual relationships between people, buffalo, and the land. In 2000, Blackfoot nations divided by the Canada-US international border sought to renew their historic relationships and to reestablish a united political community. Also in 2009, nine BC based First Nations came together to establish a collaborative governance framework to support the conservation of the Great Bear Rainforest. That's great, right? This is what we need to be focusing on. Taking care of our planet, taking care of the animals, taking care of the resources, taking care of each other. I don't understand why that's so foreign or bad or labeled this awful communism. Like the misinformation that goes around, right? The labeling. The labeling in this country. Yeah. Whew. That's what probably what causes my culture shock the most. Okay, there have also been efforts among the Cree and Inuit, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe, and many others to revitalize Indigenous treaty making and diplomatic protocols. Amazing, right? Like, sounds good to me. What is our treaty future? Whether historic or contemporary, Indigenous treaty making has always been rooted in long-term commitments to share responsibility and shared sovereignty. Principles repeated by Indigenous negotiators through treaty diplomacy. Like, just give them a seat at the table and listen. They are as important as the libs and the cons and the NDPs and the whatevers, right? Actually, they're more important because let's be real, what we did was wrong. I don't care if you still want to put the narrative that we conquered, we conquered. Like, we know that that's wrong. So we need to stop. We need to stop thinking it's okay to just conquer and bully and kill and all that jazz, right? That's Neanderthal. Okay. Sorry, that's my own personal bias. What do you think? Let's talk about that actually, right? And then I would open that. So it is hard as a human and as a teacher to not input your bias. But if you're aware of your bias and you can bring that up for discussion, then everybody can talk and share their bias. And then again, we get all sides of the story. And to me, I don't know if that's more like a first principles learning thing or if that's just education or where I got that from. But to me, it has been one of my best classroom strategies, to be honest. Okay, where am I? Despite Canada's failure to honor these principles, they are the foundation of our treaty future. I do have to say that I can easily agree that Canada is failing at this because I learned about truth and reconciliation when I was in China, and when I came back, I expected it to be way better over here. And really, I feel like it's more like the USA than anything else. There's a lot of ignorance, there's a lot of lack of education, there's misinformation, there's a lot of hate on teachers, hate on immigrants, hate on capitalism, which understandably. But what's happening is that we all know one side of the story, some side of the story. Some of us see the cages that surround us, some of us don't. Some of us see it only from one perspective, some of us only see one or two perspectives, some of us see many perspectives. And it's all very jarring and it's all very difficult. And it takes a lot of like ego dropping and it takes a lot of shame dropping to really be able to come to the table in good faith and really do what is best for the majority, right? It's very hard to keep your own ulterior motives aside. So if we could do that and be more open and transparent, again, everything would go so much better, right? So again, when you're in your classrooms, Just be the teacher that influences people to critically think. Because again, we're not here to indoctrinate. We are here to educate and critically think and try to make our country and our people as best as they can be, right? And that to me is not being a Trumparoonie. That to me is finding non-violent ways to be human on this planet. Okay, well, that is the end of this page. So how does that? That kind of worked out well, eh? Perfect little tangent and yeah, so that's the first page, and then let's just look at the map. And then I think we'll just call it a day for this because otherwise I will take up a little bit too much of your time. Ooh, look, cool. Okay, I love that. See, oh, interesting. I'm in Edmonton, so I'm in Treaty 6, which goes all the way into Saskatchewan. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, I knew that it was Treaty 6. I just didn't realize the whole geography of it. And like again, I hope that kids are learning this in geography classes nowadays. Obviously, I didn't learn this in geography class back in the day, but with Truth and Reconciliation, this should be easily in grade 9. For sure, or high school. I teach high school, so that's what I'm thinking about, but probably even like grade 5 and stuff. When do we start doing the map of Canada? Right. And so this is a lot of where the curriculum changes have come in, right? People are complaining about curriculum changes and the money that it costs and this and that and the other, but like we need to learn about this. We need to include this. There's so much history here that we have ignored, right? And it's like, look, we even stop at Canada, but to them, this border, it wasn't that border before we came and colonized, right? Before we all came and said, I want this and I want this and I want this. So. We got to go further. We got to dig deeper. We can't just stay at the surface. We can't just stay on the one-sided stories. And so, yeah, let's work towards truth and reconciliation. Let's avoid being Trump-a-roonies. And please, by all means, share, comment, discuss. And I'll see you for the next whatever comes out of me. All right, ciao for now.